keep introducing speaker by speaker. By first, uh, welcoming to the stage Alistair Mark. Please, yeah. So Alistair, I have his biography here as a bachelor in politics journalism English from Hong Kong, University of Hong Kong. Several masters from other universities like University of Strathclyde, University of Surrey, and University of Cambridge, plus numerous other certificates. Alistair is currently the Director General of the Blockchain Climate Institute. He's the co-drafter of the ISO 14097 Climate Finance Standard and a UK representative on ISO 22739 for blockchain and distributed ledger technology. In the UK, Alistair also chairs the Energy and Climate Change and Green Finance Committee of the British Blockchain Association, and serves as an ad hoc expert and advisor to all party parliamentary group on blockchain. Please welcome Alistair. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Very welcome to our second session on insurance at COP25. Last Saturday, we had done the first session in French. This session, we're going to do it in English. The topic of our session today is how blockchain-based parametric insurance can tackle the financial impact of climate disasters. So in this session, we're going to do a deep dive on how a blockchain technology can automate disaster risk insurance for even smallholder farmers in the least developed part of the world. So before I talk about how, let me just steal a little time to introduce our Blockchain and Climate Institute. So we are a volunteer-led, not-for-profit think tank and an advocacy group supporting governments and businesses in the deployment of blockchain and emerging digital technologies in climate change policy implementation. So far, we are the world's only think tank focusing on this very niche policy and regulatory areas with different governments. Our mission is to raise awareness and effect positive changes among the international climate change policy community of the tremendous potential of blockchain technology to considerably enhance state and non-state climate actions. So today, our focus is on a critical analysis of how the capacity of a blockchain-based parametric insurance can tackle climate disasters. So thanks to our excellent research team, which has spent a couple of months early 2019, this year, on studying the use of blockchain to automate a blockchain-based disaster risk or weather index-based insurance to tackle different types of climate disasters. So let me give you some scenes to digest before we talk about the blockchain solutions. In 2011, there were massive floods in Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia, where over 800 people died. 85% of Thai provinces declare flood disaster zones. There were 20,000 homes of farmland damaged. Global supply chain on electronic components from the Thailand-based factories were significantly disrupted. So at that time, the tech company had a big headache how to make sure there's enough supply for your iPhone. And altogether, there was around 47 billion US dollars of damages. However, only less than 8% of these reported damage was properly insured. Yeah, there are been disproportionate sufferings in V20 countries. V20 country means the most vulnerable 20 countries. The annual damage from climate disasters for experience in V20 countries amounts to $65 billion a year, while the rest of the world also only $50 billion. The V20 countries bear the brunt of most of the climate disasters. In contrast, V20 countries only receive around 4% of insurance coverage against these climate disasters, while the rest of the world, particularly those in the wealthy parts of the world, at least they got on average 30 or even more. At the same time, V20 countries actually were not really responsible for carbon emissions. Only 2% of the carbon emissions are really from these V20 countries, while the rest of the world are responsible for another 98% of carbon emissions. So it's absolutely unfair if we leave this problem untouched, or some people try to turn a blind eye to this problem by living with it. I can tell you that if you want to live with the problem, then you are the problem. Yeah. There is a interesting citation from Morris Kellogg, who is the chair of ClimateWise. He's also CEO international of the famous insurer Aviva. He said, "The climate risk protection gap presents insurers with one of our industry's most profound challenges. But the cost of extending sustainable insurance cover is simply not affordable in many places. In fact, the climate risk insurance, even if they're available in the developing country market, are very expensive. Yeah, smallholder farmers in developing countries actually have no way to afford hundreds or even $1,000, $2,000 per year in order to make sure their crops are covered." Okay, before we have a deep dive into the blockchain solutions, how many of you, by showing hands, know very well how blockchain works technically? Only a few. How many of you have heard of the term blockchain? Just heard of the term. Okay, so it means that the majority of our audience here might need some basic education of what blockchain is, how it works. Let's do a blockchain 101 in precisely 2 minutes 16 seconds. So these are one of the best video that summarized the technicality of blockchain. With the understanding how blockchain really works, you're not going to understand what we're going to say afterwards.
Other driving banks, venture capitalists. By now, you've probably heard about blockchains and other driving banks, venture capitalists, and crypto libertarians into its friends. Maybe you've seen explainer videos with stacks of blocks or sci-fi spiderwebs overtaking the planet. Just forget about all that for a second. The important thing to remember about blockchains is that they make it harder for digital data to go rogue. Digital information likes to be free, just ask your recording industry. Once a file is created, it can be copied, modified, and quickly develop a wild social life all its. Before you know it, you're looking at a photo of kitties on the. Digital data's libertine tendencies encourage companies to report. It's why the simple idea of digital currency took a long time to figure out. Blockchains are promising because they create data you can trust. The trick is to bind that data into a strict framework of rules using cryptography. A blockchain creates a kind of shared record of data, with each piece of data secured with its own applications. Only people with the right digital keys can add data to the blockchain or modify information that's already there. You can get the upside of the internet, like speed and transparency, the downsides, like rogue data. Digital currencies, like Bitcoin, use blockchains to prevent counterfeit. And because computers belonging to many different people enforce the rules, no one is in charge and there's no need for a single bank. Companies can use blockchains to create a safe space to share data and collaborate with competitors. That can be faster and more transparent financial transactions, less identity theft, and easier ways to share your money. Companies are even using blockchains to be more transparent about their supply chains, which can help avoid outbreaks of newborn illness. I'll be honest with you, a lot of blockchain's applications can sound a little more. They're not maybe accountants have about it, it's a lot more. But some spaces all around, digital currencies are being tested as a way to help people not through like conventional banks, like refugees. The gemstone industry is testing the blockchain to prevent sales of blood diamonds. Blockchain is not going to make it possible to safely allow people to go over the internet. So those are blockchains, digital data that you can actually trust. Internet, don't worry about the blocks.
Is it a very succinct introduction of blockchain? So let me recap three of the main points of blockchain here. So blockchain is a digital approach, obviously. It eliminates the manual documentation and lowers the overhead cost of whatever applications you're trying to develop, because there's no paper involved. And as blockchain is enabling peer-to-peer transactions, we are going to eliminate the middleman, which may sometimes be called a bank or government department to traditionally to authorize step by step before they can approve the transactions. But with blockchain, because its immutability and the hyper security of the entire decentralized network, everybody got the same copy of the database in their laptop or mobile phone. So it's unlikely for you to really change the data on the blockchain. So that's why the economists brand it as a trust machine. You may be questioning why blockchain is immutable. There's something called consensus algorithm. So on a blockchain, there's not only one computer. Traditionally, when we fill in some e-forms, which seems very sophisticated, but it isn't. The servers is on a centralized bank or centralized organization. If I were a hacker, I just need to hack into one computer or one server, then I can steal all your data. I can change whatever I want. I just need to hack into one computer. But on a blockchain, when there's millions of computers in the same decentralized network, if I were a hacker, in theory, I can still hack into a blockchain, but the caveat is that I have to hack into the millions of computers together at the same time without a second delay, which is not profitable for me as a hacker. So even if there's one person trying to exchange data in one of the blocks through computer without authorization, then because of the consensus algorithm design, the other blocks will automatically disprove the validity of the unauthorized amendments to the other block. So majority rules. That's how the consensus algorithm works. There's a consensus because it comes from the majority, the version of the majority blocks. So you can't really change the any information stored on a block on the blockchain for whatever transactions. So a lot of governments are very intrigued by this technology because corruption is not possible here, fraud is not possible here. Yeah, and of course, we still need to overcome some hurdles, which we can discuss in a panel discussion later on. So I'm sure that a lot of you have some experience with climate risk insurance before, or whatever insurance. It takes a long time usually for you to claim money from the insurer. The insurer will ask you for all the evidence, how much damage an accident caused to you, and through with a lot of long-winded verification process before they really pay you compensation. But now we, in the 21st century, as climate change is starting to bite many parts of the world, we don't have time to process papers. We don't have time to invite auditors or verify to go to your house to assess a piece by piece of your furniture, see how much damage is done by the weather disasters. Instead, we want to adopt a new model by allowing blockchain-based smart contract to automate the entire claim process. So we no longer need any more insurers who come to verify your damage. Instead, we go for a new approach called parametric insurance. Parametric insurance is quite different from the traditional insurance. in that the payout comes to the victims automatically once as the weather conditions reach certain threshold. For example, in the context of a drought, the relative humidity when the relative humidity of of such geographical area drop to a certain percentage, then the blockchain-based smart contract could automate the payouts from the interest bounty of funds to the victims or the farmers, perhaps using e-wallet or mobile money too. Yeah, or in the case of flood, says the water level reach certain meter, then with the data giving validating that oracle, then the smart contract automates the payout to the victims. So the similar principles apply for hurricanes, for locust disaster, for whatever you can think of. Yeah. So instead of just listening to my speech, I would like to invite maybe Joseph, who maybe will share with us the increasing magnitude of the climate impacts in African region. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lester, for giving the floor. Yes, I was one of the negotiators in charge of technology transfer and convention. And our actual point is that we cannot reach our space grand goal with our technology, but how to choose the best technology and how can we use it to lead for our development. We come to the situation that, okay, the questions are there, but our problems in Africa are there also. How to make this matchmaking. This last month, we have been facing some problem in Mozambique, in Cameroon, where many families have lost their houses because of flooding. And we have also drought problem. But nothing can say today that the family have been reimbursed or have been taken in charge. Because of course, it's not easy to affect the price on what's happening in the country. And it's not easy to predict what will happen with crops, for example. And now we are starting to have more money in adaptation. It means that when time will come, when we have money in our basket, it will go to put something we can help measure the economic impact, even the beneficial of that money. So insurance will be nice, very nice to implement. But how? If you use our traditional insurance, it won't be one reach a point. Would be only running after and after difficulties. So we do think as technology ambassadors that if we can move to blockchain, if we can use blockchain as the DNA of our development, maybe we'll be keen to accelerate our maybe SDG or climate finance, climate change action in Africa. So from my perspective as a technology negotiator for an activist, we have to find the mean, understand, and gentlemen for BCI, how to build a strong platform, blockchain platform, for not only for Africa, but for all this need we have to address. Now it's totally new, and we all are afraid. We wonder, yes, what is blockchain? Is it ready for Africa or Africa ready for the blockchain? 10 years ago or 20 years ago, people used to say mobile phones are not for Africans. They cannot afford that. They cannot make a best use of that. But now, the only place where you can transfer money in 1 second, maybe it's in Africa. When I'm in Europe, for example, I can have balance on my phone, but cannot transfer it to you when in a prepaid mode. In Congo with that. Even with your kids, do you need 100 several forms of credit for your phone? I do transfer. So Africa is ready for this technology. Now the biggest number of developers in the world is not in China or India, it's in Africa now. So this is the platform we have to produce, we have to take ownership of that blockchain so we can become the most, we can spread it to the world and maybe influence the leapfrog of the climate change to action in Africa. It's how we come to us and also to the world because the problems are common. Geographical area are different, but we have to make the best use of blockchain. Okay, I'm not saying that I'm very, very happy with blockchain. I'm just a dreamer. So I would like blockchain to help me to achieve my goals, my dreams.
Thank you very much, Joseph, Alistair. We're going to move now. Unfortunately, well, not all panelists could make it here. Some of them, are quite far away. But we have a video that we like to play. If I find it here. What of these? Yes. My name is Dale Schilling. I'm the chief. Let me just expand this. And just before he starts, just to give you a bit of background about Dale. So Dale has an MBA from Harvard Business School and a Bachelor in Arts in Economics from Kyoto University. He worked in Tokyo for Mitsui, a larger Japanese trading house. And recently, as early as last year, Dale funded Hildrich Technology to help farmers mitigate the financial impact of extreme weather on their crops and livestock. So I'll leave you with this video where he can explain better. Here at the Insurance Working Group of the Blockchain Climate Institute. I'm based in Sydney, Australia, and I apologise that I'm not able to be there with you in person today. As Alistair mentioned, there are many challenges to address the climate protection gap. Blockchain is highly relevant for the insurance sector. It's best known as the software that underpins cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin and Ethereum. But there are three features beyond cryptocurrencies that make it an interesting proposition for disaster risk financing. The first is digital. Traditional insurance seems to thrive on manual documentation, application forms, claims forms, damage assessments, settlement forms, and payment notifications. Blockchain by comparison is fully digital. Secondly, it is a trusted distributed ledger. It is a peer-to-peer system rather than relying on a central source of truth. Each block creates a cryptographic hash of the previous block that includes a timestamp and transaction data. What this does is make it very difficult, nearly impossible, to modify data once it's been stamped. Thirdly, within blockchain is an emerging technology called smart contracts. Smart contracts are virtual contracts written in computer code that govern a transaction. The terms of the agreement are pre-programmed, and the software can self-execute and self-enforce independently without intermediaries. A series of if-then statements then govern the transactions. And so a system like this lends itself to parametric insurance, which also operates on predetermined rules. So how does blockchain-based parametric insurance compare with traditional insurance products? Here we have a matrix. On the x-axis are two forms of insurance, traditional indemnity insurance and parametric insurance. And on the y-axis, we have manual process handling on the upper row, and then a digital blockchain-based approach on the lower row. Traditional indemnity-based insurance is manual and high cost. It's the high cost of providing a quote, the cost of binding a contract, and if disaster strikes, the cost of performing a damage assessment, settling the claim, and providing a payout.
Across the page, we have parametric insurance. Parametric insurance does not require on-the-ground inspections, as settlements are based on predetermined triggers that are linked to independent effective measures that are correlated with damages. One of the first parametric insurance programs was the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, which was set up by the World Bank in 2007. They offer protection from hurricanes, earthquakes, and excess rain for governments, all based on pre-agreed parameters such as wind speed and rainfall. These pay out automatically when certain weather events strike. Parametric insurance is not a silver bullet, but it does have its drawbacks. The design of the parameters is especially critical. If these do not correlate well with damages suffered on the ground, there is a risk that parametric insurance pays when it's not needed, or worse, that it does not pay, or it does not pay enough when disaster strikes. But designed well, it is a valuable tool within a toolkit of climate disaster risk financing options. So going down the page, integrating parametric insurance on the blockchain via smart contracts benefits the insurers and policyholders by automating claims, reducing minimum premiums, and enhancing trust. The policyholder knows that the insurance company cannot argue its way out of making a payment. There is no scope for ambiguity. The payment is governed by algorithms rather than the arbitrary judgment of an assessor. So, blockchain-based parametric insurance differs then from traditional insurance in some fundamental ways. First, the contract is entirely digital, recorded as immutable data on the blockchain, rather than in a paper-based contract. The trigger for the payment is the climate event itself, rather than an assessment of the damage following the climate event. And the payment amount is based on pre-agreed parameters, rather than as a percentage of the damage suffered. This means that the payout is fast. Payouts made in a matter of days when the policyholder needs it most, not weeks or months after the event. The costs are low, which brings down the minimum contract size by 2 orders of magnitude. This opens up the possibility for microinsurance in developing nations. Blockchain-based parametric insurance may be underpinned by powerful technology, and it is very simple for policyholders to use. There are 4 easy steps. The user can get seconds from a self-service portal. Once the premium is being paid, the contract details are entered into a mutable blockchain-based smart contract. The blockchain technology then scans the trusted weather data for the time-based triggers in the contract. If the predefined extreme weather occurs, a payment is automatically triggered. There's no need for the policyholder to make a claim. The technology does that for them. They get paid on the event occurring, not after a lengthy assessment of the damage they have suffered. I would argue the blockchain-based climate insurance is more targeted, faster, cheaper, and fairer than traditional indemnity-based insurance. The underlying risk can be priced in a targeted way, which avoids issues like moral hazard and adverse selection. And because the entry process is automated, contract size down to as orders of magnitude. Blockchain-based weather insurance can be bought for as low as $20. This is essential for developing countries where incomes of $1,000 to $4,000 are common. So we talked a lot about the theory. Let's look at a real example in the agriculture space. Drought means disaster for most farmers. Low rainfall reduces crop yields, reduces food, reduces income, and reduces the capacity of the farmer to buy seed and fertilizer for future seasons. Conventional crop insurance is too expensive for most smallholder farmers. For insurers, the high cost of administration, disputes, and fraudulent claims means that it has not been economically viable for them to serve low-budget customers. This in turn leads farmers to reduce their investment in productive assets and then select low-risk, low-return crops. But not now. More than 20,000 farmers in Kenya, Uganda, and Ghana have access to affordable crop insurance via their smartphones with WorldCover, which is a US-based insurtech startup. Blockchain-based smart contracts avoid the need for paperwork. The scheme uses satellite imagery to detect rainfall and estimate plant growth, and in the ground, payments are made automatically using a mobile money transfer service. Feed the Future Innovation Lab at the University of California, Davis has researched the impact of this type of insurance has on farmers. In Mali, they found that farmers with this type of insurance invested in more lucrative crop types, more fertilizer, and better seeds. And they found that over the cycle, the risk-taking paid off. These farmers produced 18% more on average, and they had more chickens and livestock to supplement their main income. Similar blockchain-based parametric systems are emerging across the world. Blockchain from the UK is developing parametric microinsurance connected to a mobile banking platform in Southeast Asia. Etherrisk, a platform for decentralized insurance, has formed a joint venture with Aon and Oxfam to develop blockchain crop insurance in Sri Lanka. And Hillrich is developing parametric weather index and yield index financial products for problem livestock farmers across Australia. It is this type of innovation that the Mobilising Climate Institute is trying to foster. The BCI is currently calling for target communities and countries to participate in a study pilot to assess the feasibility of creating such products. If any of the questions on the screen resonate with you, please come and see us during the conference or get in touch with us via our website or email. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dale. Now we're going to move with the last panel speaker. Going back here, that's Dr. Bramley Lingdon. I have here a short bio of Bramley. Bramley received his postgraduate degrees from Columbia University in the US, the LSE from the UK, and the University of Geneva in Switzerland, and the Intercultural Open University in the Netherlands. He has a dual PhD in sustainable development from the Azteca University in Mexico and the Central University in Nicaragua. And Bramley has worked in multiple organizations, high level like the UNDP and the World Bank. He's the founder and CEO of Worldview Impact and the co-founder of the Global Youth Action Network and co-chairs the United Nations CSD Education Caucus. So please, Bramley, if you come. I'm not sure if you have some videos around here or is this presentation?
So, yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to be short and sweet because we're going to be talking about insurance here. So, I did my research in forestry, economics, and climate change. So, I went back to my home in Northeast India, where we are working with smallholder farmers to do agroforestry projects. But as you know, there's lots of damage in their plantations, in their crops, and insurance in India is very slow, as you've heard, and the farmers, lose their crop, and there are trees being planted at an agro-free system like teak trees, high-value timber that are worth up to $10,000 to $20,000. So when they get attacked or when they get burned, people lost a lot of money. But there are also people doing intercropping of rubber trees with apples, cacao, in different climatic conditions. And it's very difficult to get insurance for smallholder farmers. Using this technology, which Alistair has showed, and our colleague from Australia can help a lot of smallholder farmers with the same kind of technology that's being used in the Caribbean, whereby each tree that's been planted can be geo-tagged with sensors, and early warning system from existing mobile towers can warn farmers of storms, hurricanes that can knock down hundreds of trees, that can trigger, floods from the highlands, that can, create locust attack if there are crops that are being planted in the trees, and fires, So I think the application of this technology, especially in developing countries where it's so cumbersome to deal with, people reach their sustainable development goals, protect their little investments, and also for those guys that are working on large-scale timber production. Timber is quite a valuable source for sustainable harvest. You can actually track the source of the timber, where it was produced, how it was produced, whether it was harvested in a sustainable way, and all the other social environmental impacts of wherever the plantation has been established. And in the same way with people working on RED projects or AR to validate and verify the source of these carbon credits and the community engagement, and now to actually measure the sustainable development goals of how your project is SDG compliant. So we have to move beyond carbon, and maybe even payments for carbon. Through the blockchain, you can, trickle down into break the 1 ton, because some people don't consume up to 1 ton, maybe just in kilograms you can sell. There's some companies working on that to sell carbon credits in just kilograms and kgs. And in that same onus, we can do microfinance for smallhold farmers who can never get a big lump sum of money because they might not have credit. But through blockchain, like in India, there are states that have put their entire state, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, putting land records of farmers, of individuals into the blockchain. So there can be no double selling of land or property and so on. If people can put their records on the blockchain, it makes it easier for giving loans, for checking the soil, the health, what kind of trees can grow there, what kind of crops. So an investor can actually zoom into that plot of land, see what the farmers are growing, who's the owner of that, what is the value of land, instead of going to the bank. And this peer-to-peer lending can cut that slack time which has to grow through credit check, putting your land as a collateral, and then farmers in India all committing suicide because they can't pay back these banks at 17% interest, and so on and so forth. I know it's the same thing in Africa. You're becoming a slave to the banks. So to release these people from this kind of slavery, blockchain is the way to go for microfinance to the bare minimum, working with trusted MFIs and trust. Because again, blockchain is all about trust. So I think in the same example I'm using, these young people who have been demonstrating in the streets of major capitals around the world and also in developing countries, if they have a wallet in their phone, the 500,000 people that were in the streets of Madrid, and they have 10 euros each, and they all transfer 10 euros, that'll be 5 million, to some other kids in Africa who are working, who have been validated on a blockchain and who are planting trees. And we've got 5 million trees with GPS coordinates actually locked on the blockchain and planted. Now that's trust, youth to youth. Here are people in the streets calling for world leaders to take action, but they're taking action through this peer-to-peer lending with just $10 or 10 euros each. But then you've got 5 million trees already planted. Now that's action. Now multiply that to 3.5 billion young people on the planet, peer-to-peer lending all around the world. Like my brother from Africa just mentioned, you can just transfer money through M-Pesa and through your text messages. You can do that in India, you can do that in Africa, but you can't do that here. But integrating blockchain into these low-tech cell phones, you don't even have to have internet, can help a lot of young climate entrepreneurs in the field who really need our support right now, who are on the front line, but who are making a difference. So they don't have to wait for their banks or for big multilateral agencies to give them loans and be, bankable projects. They don't have time for that, to fill these huge feasibility studies and reports that need consultants to be flown in from Europe and the US to tell them what to do. They're smarter, they know better. They just don't have access to technology. This one, we can deploy it rapidly and help all these millions of young people, especially in the developing world. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'd like to invite all the speakers now to panel session for Q&A. Please, if you could all come and join us. Promoting some of the other events. Please, if you could come, you could join Bramley. And Joseph was around. But yeah. So we can start. I don't know if there is any questions so far, but I do have some questions. Yes, please.
Uh, thanks for the interesting presentation on the blockchain. Um, I understand this is a fairly new concept, and was it only tested in those countries that has been highlighted? And just wanted to check what are the challenges, what are the disadvantages. You have talked more about the advantages of this technology, but what are the disadvantages or challenges that you have come across? Thank you.
You're from which country? Huh?
So, South Africa.
Oh, your home base here. Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, of course, there are major challenges to be overcome before we can really adopt blockchain in any policy areas, particularly from a legal perspective. For example, smart contract plays a key role in these types of blockchain-based parametric insurance. With the smart contracts, whatever we produce is not meaningful. But according to common law system, we have something called contract law. So now it's still pretty unclear whether smart contracts are also viewed by judiciary as equivalent to a typical contract compatible with contract law principles. So in case of any legal disputes in the future, the courts will have a headache. Yeah, so as I presented to a number of government officials in the past, in order to prepare to adopt blockchain into your country, there are a few things you do. First, you should provide a supportive regulatory environment by reviewing your existing law, including contract law, finance law, banking law, taxation law, data privacy protection law, because all the data are generated by artificial intelligence or satellite imagery or even those personally identifiable data about the households as policy who are the policy holders of these insurance might incur problems of data privacy issues. Blockchain is very transparent. Of course, it depends on how the government design or how the insurance design the blockchain. If you want to opt for an open a public blockchain system, all the data are visible to everyone. But if you want to opt for a private blockchain or professionally we call it permissioned blockchain, then only some of the information will be visible to the public. Yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing is that blockchain is just a distributed ledger, or in layman term, a decentralized database. It's just a database. It's not a silver bullet that can solve a country's problem overnight. Although some of the government officials really want me to say that, and I said no. And another official say, please say yes, and I say no. Yeah, because a database needs data. If we unless we collect the right data of standard formats, of accuracy, and of good quality, it's garbage in, garbage out. So in order to make this blockchain-based parametric insurance a success, uh, the data that will be used to activate the blockchain-based smart contract for automatic playout will play a critical role to make sure it runs very smoothly in any jurisdiction. Yeah, these are some of the challenges for you to digest. Perhaps our panelists may have something else to add.
Yeah, like I said, India is testing blockchain. Some people confuse between cryptocurrency and blockchain. It's a whole different thing. A lot of people don't have even a clue what blockchain is. So if you're an accountant, basically this is an accounting software that links all of us. So if Alistair gives me $1 for planting one tree and my little tomato tree grows and I've got 5 tomatoes and I sell them for $5 to him, and he drives his truck and takes it to the supermarket and he sells it at $20, she as the investor can trace the $1 to $5 to $10 to 20. And she knows exactly that if I invest $1 to Alistair, I can get back 20 when it hits the supermarket. If the tomatoes, if the land, if the way I've done blocks. my transaction between me and Alistair is $1. You can see it crystal clear. My transaction, another chain between me and Joseph is $5. You can see, and so on and so forth. And each transaction is locked. No one can break this, or else you'll have to hack all our computers at the same time, and it's impossible. There's copies of all the transaction in all our computers, and it could be anywhere in the world. So it's basically hack proof, and it doesn't burn that kind of energy as cryptocurrency. We're not mining anything. This is just an accounting software that anyone can see, the public one, of course. So there's no room for corruption. It's complete transparency and quick deployment of funds. And for an investor, he can collect that data from source to source of product. And it verifies everything, and it saves a lot of time. And it's built on trust between us who share that ledger.
Yes, one of the biggest issue we'll be facing as the big countries, it should be how to report on money received and support received. So the blockchain would be a very nice tool to enhance the transparency framework. We are talking about the ETF, and the ETF could be based on the blockchain and make things easier. We are talking about how to leapfrog our action, climate action. Of course, we can use. We have seen on the movie that you can, if you are planting tree, what the quantity of carbon you can put into the market based on your plantation. So, it's something. In appearance, it's very complex. Of course, every type of technology, it takes time to be implemented. But once you have put your project on blockchain, maybe you can think about having a full blockchain-based company in Africa. So everything will be on blockchain. The payment of what you have to give back to a farmer who are your provider, for example, it can be based on that. So monitoring of the quality of your forest, because if you are a forest owner and fire hits your forest, you will be losing money. Blockchain can be one of the means to predict the weakness of your forest as the exposure of your forest to fire or to flood. So it's just an instrument we have to make the best use of it. To do that, we have to know to do what you're doing here, to be interested and to find a way how we can use it like a tool to empower our business, to empower actually our low carbon development in Africa. So, one of the big barrier for blockchain, it will be, I'm quite sure, the regulation. We need to update our regulations. Yes, and to enhance it. If we don't do that, okay, not only blockchain will be the barrier to go beyond, but also many things. No country, for example, now, one of the main blockers in African countries is corruption, because there is no trust. If we put trust in our way of living, then we will be moving faster. I could make business with you wherever you're based, in China or where, because you know that there is a smart contract in your we will be paid at the second when money is in my bank account. And when your transaction or your recording, it is recorded in my company, I say. So it's something which it will flow, a confidence will flow like a rainfall. You will have it will be one on your head, on my head at the same time. So we have to do something so we can accelerate our updating our regulation in our country.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Really an eye-opener for us, some of us. I'm Benedict Libanda from Namibia. Our country is one of the driest, and crop failure is an annual occurrence. So on average, the government spent about 70 million US dollars on drought relief, and it's increasing, getting unsustainable. So one of the the task that we've been given is to look for insurance scheme for crop failure. So we've spent money designing systems and giving us lots of challenges from premium, reinsurance, etc. Huge challenges. So I'm glad that this is coming on the market. But I would have loved to see some form of an example on how you source a quotation, or maybe share with us some available platforms that we can follow online for more information on how to source quotation, what are the parameters used in the process. I'm sure different field size, different crops will come up with different quotations. I think that those details will be more of interest to us. Furthermore, we are also working with the Green Climate Fund to come up with a project on blockchain, insurance, and renewable energy, carbon trading, etc. I think I would love to engage you further going forward and see if we can tap on your expertise and advice to work with the government of Ghana.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for a very informative presentation. Uh, However, my comment, I'm from South Africa. My comment is that this technology that is being presented here, it's quite helpful. However, in the context of the Africa region, the developing countries, we have put more emphasis on enhancing our resilience and capacities. And then that is the focus of Africa now. And we do not have enough capacity in terms of responding to climate change. And my understanding is that this is not all solving solution. I think it could be better if this technology is balanced with adaptation capacity, not to present it as a blanket solution to the Africa problem. More especially because we have crucial national circumstances. For example, in Africa, we don't even have life insurances. People, when they are dead, children are left without anything from their parents. So I think there is the need to balance this technology if it has to be domesticated in the African region, to understand how can it be implemented in the context of building the Africa resilience capacities.
Thank you very much. The panel would like to take these questions.
Yeah, in response to the first questions on more further information. Yeah, actually, we presented this concept at the Commonwealth Research Conference back in February this year in London. And at that time, we published a conference proceedings with the Commonwealth Secretariat. It included a lot of statistics and some other theoretical framework which might interest you. So if you leave us your contact details, we are very happy to share the conference proceeding with you. If I recall correctly, it's around 6,000, 7,000 word paper, something like that. So in response to the second question regarding not putting blockchain as a blanket solution, yes, I agree, of course. We've been invited to speak at various conferences. One of my main arguments that I share with the audience, whoever they are, is that blockchain is only part of the solution. As I said before, blockchain is just a database. It really depends on whether the stakeholders are able to combine blockchain with some other technologies like artificial intelligence, satellite imagery, Internet of Things, drones, remote sensors. Yeah, that's the possibilities of innovations to solve some very old problems are unlimited, depending on your national or geographical circumstances. So now for this concept of blockchain-based parametric insurance, we have already selected two pilot sites to test it further. One is Fiji in Pacific, another one is Dominica in Caribbean. Some development agencies are going to support with some initial funding to do some more surveys. Now we're actually looking for one more pilot site in Africa. And so if South Africa is interested, I'm sure our chair of insurance working group will be able to answer further technical questions around is piloting, financing required, all sorts of numbers that you might be looking for. Yeah, so that's my tentative response to your question.
Just to add on to resilience, there's a lab here. Have you been to it? The Resilience Lab. I think it's the most vibrant lab ever that the UN has put together in 25 years of UNFCCC history. It's outside and it's all about action. And it's full of young people and it's all about adaptation and finance to young people, especially from developing countries. On another note, if you know the African Development Bank, I know some colleagues there that have developed an adaptation benefit mechanism. And it's like beyond carbon credit, and it's all about payment for, it's like ecosystem services, but this is a engine that the African Development Bank has developed. And maybe you can, if you give me your card, I can put you in touch with the African Development Bank. And they also want to integrate blockchain in this you know, putting this money into the farmers, into the real guys who are working on adaptation benefits to calculate the benefits from the adaptation projects all across Africa. So this is a good tool that Alistair just mentioned. It's up to you how you add all the different technologies to talk to each other and cross-verify the data. Like he said, if the data is wrong, it's garbage in, garbage out. But imagine you have a lot of young people all across South Africa, maybe some of them with smartphones, and standing in close proximity to each other, witnessing an environmental crime being done, or somebody cutting forests, or a company. And they all take pictures at the same time in close location, and that data is validated not by just me, but by Alistair and Joseph, because of our proximity to the crime. And that data loads up how many people, who did it, when, where, how, and it feeds into a database. So this is another way of collecting credible data that is given by stringers around the world using existing technology to an app, whether it's pictures, data, numbers, sound, voice, or even videos. That's real time and it can be validated. So he has an incentive of not sending the wrong data because there's another person close by, another person to cross-validate and cross-reference that data. And this is another way of collecting real information on the ground real time to validate projects.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Just from your remarks earlier on, with respect to the fact that blockchain and cryptocurrency are different. And in the way you have explained it, then I began to understand, right? But tell me, what is the relationship between blockchain and cryptocurrency? Because at some point, there is some form of relationship which to laymen like me is not clear.
Okay, I'll give you a little example again of a farmer, okay? So imagine he's the investor, I'm the farmer, I have 1 hectare of land, and I'm growing mangrove trees, 5,000 trees. I've employed other people and I've planted 5,000 trees, and Alistair sent me $5,000, okay? That's just the skeleton cost of planting each tree. And I have geotagged each tree, all 5,000, for him to see through his phone real time with satellite imagery and then enhanced with drone. Now, I employ other friends to take care of these trees because one guy cannot maintain. You can plant, it's good, but maintenance is where survival rate works, because it's no use if you plant and you don't care and all 5,000 trees dead, then he'll be very pissed off. So the people who take care of those trees need to be rewarded, because the integrity of that ecosystem, of that 1 hectare, or whether it can withstand a storm or a hurricane or a wind or produce fish, depends on the health of those trees, how fast they grow, how much fish will come in. And if it's a fisherman, he's going to get 50% higher yield. We need to calculate all those benefits, carbon one of them. All those 5,000 trees will draw down 1 ton of carbon each over 20 years. That's just trees. The soil carbon is separate because mangroves store 5 times more carbon than rainforest trees. So if an investor comes and he wants to buy the price of carbon, Alistair invested $1, but that $1 becomes $20 from the price of carbon. Suddenly he invested one, and then some guy buys at 20 for the carbon, just the carbon, and he can see that the transaction of that. So that asset can be kryptonized. So you can create like a mangrove coin. Every tree that Alistair planted can be minted into a coin. And the value of that coin can go up and down depending on how well he took care of his trees. If he didn't take care of the trees, the value would be just $1 or zero because the trees died. But if you took care of the trees and those mangrove trees accrue asset over time to be tall and strong and withstand storms and hurricanes and tsunamis and floods and produce fish, that coin could be worth $1,000 of total economic benefits beyond carbon. So that's how you can link the cryptocurrency with a real tree, a standing asset on the ground, which can be traded into different platforms. You understand? Cool.
I guess in simple words, the blockchain is just a database, and you can put in that database currency, which then creates a crypto, or you can put trees or many other things which we want. But it's just, yeah, blockchain is the database, and we can store anything we want in that database. The thing is, money is very famous, and well, that's what cryptos are. It's just money stored on distributed ledgers. Any other question?
Hi, thank you all so much. I have a couple questions that come from a place of ignorance because I don't know admittedly much about blockchain or insurance. So one of the things I do know is that cryptocurrency is very energy intensive. And so I think you answered this question already. Do you have concerns with blockchain scaling up like you guys want it to, that it'll be a massive energy investment?
Yeah. First of all, we are not into the Bitcoin space where you mint. What I mentioned today is just tokens based on trust, on histories and his care. So these two guys have to trust each other, that one guy invests, another guy takes care. And these are not Bitcoins that they're just like in the air. They're not linked to real assets. But his coins are really linked to tangible assets, which an investor can go and monitor. And they might be just tokens. But those assets are perceived. And it all depends on how well these two guys trust each other, and their exchange will be built on trust, and that will go up. And it doesn't have to take so much energy because his computer is already running anyway, and his data will be shared with his data. We're not mining anything like in the crypto space of Bitcoins and all those Ethereum. There's the difference. Those are the guys that mine and plunder the markets. It's a whole different space altogether. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, this is a standard question I got asked almost every time I speak on blockchain. Actually, I acknowledge that the problem of energy consumption because of a cryptocurrency mining, which is a process needed in order to make it work. However, the good news is that this is just blockchain 1.0. It's past tense. Yeah, in the past, of course, everyone needs to mine the cryptocurrency on the network. This process is called proof of work, or POW, or some people say POW. Yeah. Nowadays, we got blockchain 2.0, which means that a proof of work is no longer a current process. We change it to proof of stake, STAKE, not STEAK. A lot of people got it wrong. Yeah, yeah. So it means a proof of stake system means that not all computers are required to mine a Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency. Instead, it depends on the designer of this blockchain network to indicate the criteria by which these computers are selected to do the mining. There are also blockchain 3.0, blockchain 4.0 in development. Although they have not been scaled up yet, I note that at least some of the blockchain systems are being developed in, say, Cornell or some other tech companies in the US are already claiming that the new generation of blockchain will be of zero consumption. Yeah, so the blockchain mining related energy consumption will be part of history.
I'd like to add to that as well. I spent time at university and the field of distributed ledgers, that's the high level. Blockchain is just one type of distributed ledger, but there are other types of distributed ledgers, like, for example, DAX, directed acidic graphs, which are way more scalable. It's a whole field of research which is taking place at the moment. And yeah, in the future, lots of different things will happen with no added energy consumption. And so it's just getting started. It's looking quite bright in the future.
Actually, I would like to make one more point. So this innovation is just part of the pictures that we would like to create in the implementation of Paris Agreement. All these tokenization of mitigation or adaptation efforts should eventually be integrated into the global carbon or climate investment market. So when all the countries entered into this model of climate-related transactions, eventually the ITMO or ICMO being included in Paris Agreement will be just a piece of cake. So of course, we don't expect that piece of cake really appearing tomorrow. It may take some time. At least some countries in every region have to make the first step.
Thank you. I don't know if we have time for one last question, but if not, well, come to close. Yeah. Uh, one more last
I
comment.
would like to make one last comment about in Namibia. And I know a bit of this country that one of the big activities in Namibia is fishery. And I think where the blockchain can be applied is, okay, we know that many people are coming Chinese are coming from everywhere, not in Chinese, many are not Chinese. Sorry.
Yes, you're right.
So, the fishery industry are sending boats along the African sea to collect our fish. And we can maybe, I'm just guessing, and this is I'm driving, having where you can send satellite to the sea to see how big is the population of fish that way, and how at the meantime we can improve the quality of frying fish and smoking fish. So a buyer based in Canada, in Congo, and everywhere can say, okay, I need the premium, the best quality of fish, and I will know that okay, at this time fish will grow very fast because of the imagery we do that, and also maybe the system will be based in the IoT in the processing factory, so we can make maybe a plan. Okay, in 5 years' time, fishery will grow. No, we can use to create a specific model to improve fishery industry in Namibia, for example, and at the same time the quality also, because now it's not easy to assess. You have to buy the fish. Say, okay, you have a good smell and you have a good taste, but we can actually so no. Okay, you see what I mean.
Check the entire. Check what the
I'm francophone, so you can imagine.
Thank you for those closing remarks. Well, yeah, just to close, please join me to thank the speakers for very good, interesting panels and presentations. Thank you.
We are credited by the Free Climate Fund. Yes, now we are personalized. But also the rest